and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1385, and today's date is September 24th, 2017, and the title of the episode is The Cabal's Plan is Becoming Clear. They are all in. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded an interview with Andy Hoffman on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. You can go right over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It'll bring you right to the interview. Or you can come over to the X22Report.com site, scroll down a little bit. You'll see it on the right-hand side, and you can play the video right on the site. Or you can go to NewsSentinel.com. It is back up and running. And this is a site where I am filtering in news sources from around the world. I'm still adding them in right now, but it is up and running, and everything's going to be back to normal. Hopefully in the next week or so, when I have all the sources back in, streaming into the site. But you can see it on this site also, or you can go to steemit.com. All you have to do is type in steemit.com/@X22Report, and you can watch the interview there. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, we understand that the debt problem, the global debt problem, is completely out of hand, and we understand that the debt is continually growing, and there has been warnings out there letting us know that there's going to be a huge amount of problems. Plus, we understand that the central banks have been keeping the interest rates very, very low, and the biz is continually coming out with their warning messages. Now, this is the central banks of central banks, and basically what they're saying is that the central banks right now are in danger of falling into a debt trap where they can't take needed action for fear of triggering defaults and economic turmoil. And this is coming from a senior Bank of International Settlements official, Claudio Borio, and he gave a speech in London. And what he's saying is that there is no way around this. The debt is too large. There's nothing that the central banks can do. This is why interest rates need to be kept very, very low. They continually need to add more debt to the system because there's no way around this. And eventually what's going to happen is that this whole system is going to basically implode on itself. And we can see right now that there is inflation out there. All they're doing is siphoning it off into different directions, so no one realizes that there's real inflation. But if you really look at food and at tuition, at housing prices, you can see this is where they've been putting it all, and this is where it's going. And again, these low interest rates, well, they're encouraging a record amount of borrowing. That means there's more debt out there. Plus, the central banks are buying stocks. We see all the central banks around the world doing this. And this is going to be a major problem. And we're seeing these warnings over and over again because they understand that this cannot be sustained whatsoever. And at this point, I mean, the published debt problem here in the United States is $20 trillion. But we know behind the scenes, the debt is much, much higher, especially in the global arena. We understand that they miscalculated the debt problem by about $16 trillion or so. And there's no way that this can be maintained right now on how the economy is operating, because look at all these different areas. France, we're looking at Germany, we're looking at Spain, Greece, United States, Australia, Canada, the UK. There are so many people that are out of work, and all these statistics have been manipulated so far, you don't even know what the truth is anymore. Just because someone tells you that unemployment here in the United States, for example, is at 4.7% or 4.8%, and they're saying we're almost at full employment, they're not telling you the quality of jobs, how much money people are actually making. Do they have 1, 2, 3 part-time jobs? Because they count that part-time job as a full-time job. So they're really not giving you the full picture. They're just throwing out a number telling you that everything is fine. But if you continually manipulate all these statistics throughout time, well, you don't know what's real anymore. And we could see from the real indicators like tax receipts coming into the government, those have been declining since 2008. That tells us that the jobs have been low-paying jobs, because if you have high-paying jobs, people actually pay more taxes. Yes, some people can get around it. Some people can pay less taxes, but, most of the people don't do that, and they pay their normal taxes, and the tax receipts would be going up. They wouldn't be going down. Plus, in retail, you would see the same thing. You would see stores expanding. You would see online expanding in a much, much faster pace. Everything would be a lot better right now, but it is not. We see that Obamacare, well, this looks like this might be dead in the water, this repeal that they're trying to do. We see McCain is saying no, Cruz is saying no, and it really doesn't matter at this point because that is completely falling apart and it's going to implode on itself because the premiums are way too high. The premiums for employers is way too high, and people are looking at this saying, I just can't afford this. This is just absolutely out of my reach right now. I don't have a high-paying job, and there's nothing I can do about it except to take that penalty. We see out in Spain right now, well, it looks like they tried, the Spanish government tried to put pressure on all the local mayors. They were confiscating millions of ballots to stop the October 1st independence referendum. And the groups out there, they are protesting, they're marching, and they're saying, we are going forward with this referendum. We want independence. And at this point, we can see that the polls show that 7.5 million residents of Catalonia are roughly split on breaking with the rest of Spain. But as the Spanish government continually, cracks down on them, a lot of these individuals are saying, you know something, maybe we should be separate and apart. And it's having the opposite effect right now. And it looks like all these voters, all these residents are saying, you know something, we don't like the way the government is reacting right now. Maybe we should have our independence, and they're switching sides. So we're going to have to watch that very carefully. That is coming up in about 6 days or so, and we're going to have to see how that plays out, and we'll take a look at it as we approach October 1st. We'll look at it on October 1st and see what does occur at that time point. Out in North Korea, well, we see things are really heating up there. The United States, the Pentagon, they flew their U.S. Air Force B-1B Lancer bombers, and they were escorted by fighter jets, and it flew in international airspace over waters east of North Korea, but it was right at the border of North Korea. This is the furthest that the United States has flown any bomber or jet. And the DMZ is a strip of land running across the Korean peninsula near the 38th parallel, and it separates North Korea and South Korea. And it was created back in 1953, and the United States flew right up to that point, and this is very, very close to North Korea, and this was to scare North Korea, to provoke North Korea. And once again, North Korea is not going to stop developing their nuclear program, their missile program, just because the United States flies their bombers there. Russia is out there, and this is coming from Sergei Lavrov, is saying that the United States is not going to attack North Korea whatsoever because the United States already understands and realizes that North Korea does have a nuclear bomb. If they attack, and of course Sergei Lavrov is saying they don't have all the information, but they realize they do have a nuclear weapon, and if they go in and attack, you know that North Korea will use it because they need some type of defense. They will launch it. They will, try to use it any way they possibly can. And this would be a complete and utter disaster. And this is why Russia's saying there's no way at this point the United States is going to do anything. Now, we understand out in the Middle East, things are really heating up. And we see it with the Kurdistan region. Now, we talked about this before. And we understand that the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, the Syrian Democratic Forces, the moderate rebels, they're going to be wiped out very, very shortly. Their numbers are dwindling very, very quickly. And we can see the Cabal's plan is now switching. They're moving to a completely different plan. And this is what they planned on all along. And they realize that they can't do anything with the Islamic State. They can't do anything with Al-Qaeda, with the Syrian Democratic Forces. So they're going to be using the Kurds. Now, the Kurds are also doing what the Catalonians are doing. They're going for an independence referendum on September 25th, which is tomorrow. Now, the Iraqi government is saying this is unconstitutional. The Syrian government is saying this is, ridiculous. We're not going along with this. The difference between these two and the one between Catalonia and this one is driven by the United States. This is not a grassroots uprising. This is the United States creating this entire propaganda picture by bringing in weapons, supporting the Kurds, feeding them information saying this is what you need to do, building the bases, building the airstrips, and already creating the area before there was any type of vote. This is not the Kurds coming out all of a sudden saying this is what we want. This is the United States directing them in what they want. Not the Kurds, but what they want. And of course, many of the Kurdish people, they're sitting there going, I don't know if we really want this, but, we're heading in this direction. Now, what's very interesting about all of this is they're going to use this to create chaos in the region because the referendum's not going to go well. It's not going to be like, oh, we had a referendum. Now we have a Kurd land in Iraq and one in Syria, and they're connected and they're separate and apart from these countries. So what they're going to do after the referendum goes through and it doesn't go that well, they're going to try to create chaos in this area to get the Kurds to start to fight against the Iraqi government, to have the Kurds fight against the Syrian government. I think this is where they're trying to push us because they realize that there's nothing they can do now with the Islamic State, with Al-Qaeda, with the Syrian Democratic Forces, and the United States has already placed travel warnings in Iraq, in Syria, because there might be possible unrest in the Kurdish area while they have the independence referendum. And the United Nations is out there and they're saying they should delay the referendum. We should take a look at this first, see what's going on. Is this truly what the people want? And they're not listening. The United States is completely blocking it, saying, no, this is what we want. And actually, this is the Cabal who's saying, no, this is where we're going. This is what we're doing. Now, Russia, they just put out a truth bomb. And they released photos showing the Islamic State, the SDF, and U.S. Special Forces working side by side on the battlefield. Now, they released about 12 different satellite pictures, and they're showing that they've been working with these groups all along. And I'm sure there's Al-Qaeda mixed in this also. We understand and we know that this has been going on all along. This is nothing new. All that we're seeing right now is they're finally putting out the truth bombs and they're showing the world this is what's been going on. It's not that the Islamic State was a terrorist group that just all of a sudden appeared out of nowhere and they were so strong and they had the military might to go into Syria and Iraq and, capture all the land. The United States, the Cabal, the deep state, they were helping these groups all along. During the Obama administration, they were bombing the infrastructure of Syria, allowing these groups to capture more and more lands. And we can see at this point, this is what's been going on all along. Now, Sergei Lavrov is out there once again saying, once we beat the Islamic State, because now they're almost up to 90% of the captured and liberated parts of Syria. There's only about 10% left at this point. Once the Islamic State is gone, the Syrian Democratic Forces are gone, Al-Qaeda is gone, and all the rest of the terrorist groups are gone, you're going to see the real goal of the Cabal and what they want. What the Cabal is doing right now, they are creating chaos in these two regions, in Syria and Iraq with the Kurds and with North Korea. They want an event. They want something to happen. Now, they want to make Russia still the enemy. They haven't given up on this. Now, over the past week or so, there have been a wave of fake bomb threats across Russia. And this has entered its second week. And what they're saying is this is a full-scale cyber war, because what's been happening right now is they've been calling in, and these are all fake calls. They've never found anything. These are all fake calls, and this is going through the internet, and they're trying to trace where this is coming from. These calls aren't from real people. This is all done through the internet, through computer systems, where there's a computer voice saying that there's a bomb in a shopping mall, a bomb in this area, and about 400,000 people have been evacuated from more than 1,000 shopping malls, airports, government, and other buildings around the country since it started 2 weeks ago. And Russia is saying that they are prepared for a full-scale cyber war using telephone terrorism. This is what they're calling it right now. Now, most likely, this is connected to the intelligence agencies, the Cabal, where they're trying to bring Russia into the fold, and they want them to do something somehow, some way, and to keep them on edge. And the way this has been done is that they use a chain of servers located in different jurisdictions to make the calls, and they use voice modulation software and Google Translate that makes it impossible to trace. And Russia is saying right now that, this is going to ramp up in the next couple of weeks. And they're saying so far all of them have been hoaxes, and it looks like the Cabal, or the intelligence agencies, one and the same actually, they're trying to keep Russia on edge right now, because it looks like their plan at this point, and it looks like they're going forward with it, is to create chaos within North Korea, with that whole situation, with Syria and Iraq, and to keep Russia on edge, worrying about something else while they create these events. And we can see in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have to watch this. Now, remember, all of this is happening all at once, and we're going to see this accelerate because the economy is failing. The global economy is coming down. They need to cover it up. They need to show that the central banks are not responsible for any of this. Even though the biz is giving, and people are scratching their head, well, why is the biz giving the warnings like this? Because the biz is acting like, oh, we're on top of this. We see what the other banks are doing. We need to stop this. Once the event occurs, everyone is going to forget about that. And all that's going to be forgotten. And if they can get us into a war, nobody's going to remember, and they understand this is how it works. They'll be able to restart their system all over again, because everyone would have forgotten what was happening to as we led up to that event and to that war. No one will even remember it. Even if you go back on the internet, they'll probably wipe out a lot of these articles. This is why we've been saving them. This is why I have them offline, so we can remember all that has been done here. So we can see right now the Cabal, they're pushing their agenda. It's in motion right now, and we can see that the economy at the same time is coming down, and it's accelerating, moving faster and faster. This is why you need to be prepared and ready. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.